That sounds good.
All right, everybody. So we are back for episode 30 of the Irish Iron podcast. I don't count the last two because that was the Olympia show. But for episode 30, today's guest is none other than Paul Morgan. How are we doing, Paul?
Yeah, good, man. Glad to be here. Have a chat. See how things are.
Deadly stuff.
So.
Paul, like for anyone who's listening, like Paul's a coach, Paul's a competitive bodybuilder, and he's pretty much part of the furniture out of Westside Barbell at this point up in Blanchardstown, which is a phenomenal gym. And every time I've gone in there with Christian, I've always seen you've always been training somebody or you've been training yourself. And I suppose the first client who I would know of yourself is Paul Hannigan, because I competed against him and he bet me. But he's a workhorse, isn't he? He's put on like the pictures I saw, man. Like he's put on some tissue. So
yeah, phenomenal. Absolutely amazing guy, first of all, but an absolute phenomenal bodybuilder. Just one of those guys who's very coachable. Yeah. Like you could tell him to take a crap at like 3 o'clock in the day and he'd take a crap at 3 o'clock in the day, so but yeah, no, he follows everything to the absolute letter. But like it's a testament to him now of how hard he's worked to get to where he is now. He's kind of reaching that stage now where he'd be winning the bigger shows and pushing for overalls and that kind of stuff, like so in the next year or two, like, so he really will be kind of up there, like, so again, he's made unbelievable progress this year, even with everything that's gone on. Thankfully he's had the facility to train in, like, so, which has made a big difference for him. So it's kept him moving kind of all year long, like, so but no, yeah, he's a pleasure to train, that kind of way, like, so.
Yeah, I suppose that kind of segues into a good topic, though. I mean, like, let's start from the beginning. So, I mean, obviously, like, you didn't get straight into bodybuilding. Like, I mean, what did you come from?
No,
or something, or what was your kind of introduction?
Yeah, for me, it was always really about sports. So, I've been playing sports since I was about 5 years old. And always competitive sports, so soccer and different things like that. Like, so soccer was a big one for me, like, and it was what I wanted to really do for the rest of my life at that stage, the kind of way, like, so pushing on through into teenage years and young adult and that kind of stuff, like, so always playing at a high level and that kind of stuff on the national side of things and stuff like that, like, so yeah, it was pretty good, like, so for that, like, really kind of, I suppose when I reached the age of 11 or 12, the coach we had at that stage really kind of pushed the mentality side of things into basically how hard you work is a reflection of what you get back, so for me it was always a case of turn up first, leave last, and I was never the most talented at my sport. I was a goalkeeper at that stage, but with the hard work that he kind of put into me and the hard work I put into myself and that kind of stuff, like, so I was, probably one of the best goalkeepers at my age level, like, so so it was pretty, it's just one of those things that, you work really hard for and it materializes for you over the years, like, so but yeah, there was always that dogged determination, kind of, so dedication. Obviously when you start to reach teenage years, most people start to find, a few cans down the park and things like that. Like, so that never really came about for me. It was always home early, clean my football boots with a toothbrush and prepare myself for the next morning. Like, so.
Yeah.
And that was the case,
did you find with team sports, Paul, like I found, now I wasn't as good as you, like I wasn't at that high level of like amateur sports, but I did find like team sports was definitely like, you could try your best and you could do your best. And let's say you were having a great game, but then there would be times where you'd be picking up the weight of your teammates. Like, did you feel that kind of maybe took away from your own like performance at all? Or like, is that kind of still like with bodybuilding, it's your own individual thing. So like, it's up to you.
Well, this is it. I mean, like I suppose my position as a goalkeeper was really kind of this: you make a mistake and it's a goal.
Yeah.
That kind of way. So it's the same with bodybuilding. You make a mistake, you fuck up. You know, that kind of way. Like, so I mean, with bodybuilding, it's about doing the right things day in, day out, monotonously, over time. You know, and with goalkeeping, you can kind of relate it a little bit because, you know, what's down to you is to organize. So for me, it was always about, you know, organizing the players in front of me to make sure that they didn't fuck up, which basically meant that I didn't have to, you know, put myself in a position where it's just like, okay, well, you know, it's all down to me now. So we always had a good team mentality in that respect. But no, yeah, definitely with team sports, you know, that kind of way, like, so it can be a bit of a drag in terms of, I suppose, it depends on what type of team you play on. If you play on a team where people aren't interested, and it's the same as coaching, you know, that kind of way, like, so if you have a lot of clients that aren't interested in what you're doing with them, it's very hard to kind of push that motivation factor and, you know, push them to be determined to continue on to do what they're supposed to do to get the results that they need. But if you have that, you know, all-in attitude and I'm dedicated to this and I'm motivated and I'm persistent, with them giving you 100%, you're going to give 110% back, you know? So in that case, like, yeah, you know, there's a lot of relatables that go on with all this, you know, kind of like, so with sports, with individual sports, and bodybuilding, I mean, is turning more into a team sport nowadays as well. Like, so, you know, in terms of coaching, in terms of support factors with family, friends, relationships, all that kind of stuff. Like, so, so it is, you know, there's definitely a lot of relatables as we start to kind of, it's not as cult-like, you know, kind of, it's definitely becoming more mainstream, you know.
Yeah. When did you first get into? When did you first find out about competitive bodybuilding? What was your introduction?
Yeah, I suppose for me, like, I was always very skinny, you know, like, kind of like, so I was always like, I looked like a long distance runner, you know, like, kind of, because I did a lot of long distance running when I was a kid as well, like, so.
Were you the same height as you were back then now? Or?
I'm 5'10" now,
yeah.
so I probably reached about 5'10" when I was about maybe 15 or 16.
Yeah,
you know, kind of like, so. So probably reached the height about then. So I suppose, like, with that, like, so, you know, it was a case of, you know, when I got to about, I'd say 17, so I just finished my leaving cert, and I went to do an apprenticeship actually, and my uncle was the guy I was doing it with, so he's a plumber, and my uncle was always into lifting weights, you know, and I was yanking in his toolbox, which was probably heavier than me, out of the back of the van, and he was like, he just started laughing. He goes, "Fucking hell, we have a live one here, right?" You know, so, and he was giving me stick all day, you know, about how skinny I was and the seagulls pecking at my chest looking for worms and that kind of stuff, like, so. So anyway, he dropped me home, and the same evening he popped back around with a weight set, so bench, dumbbells, barbell, and he goes, "Look," he said, "you know, you're getting older now." He's like, "You're going to be playing against bigger guys, that kind of stuff, like, so strengthen yourself up a little bit, you know." So he gave me that, and he gave me a few exercises to do and that kind of stuff. And I kind of just took it from there. You know, it was more a case of like trying to be stronger to play sports. I probably did that in my house for about 6 months, and then I joined the gym after that, like, so. I bought myself a lot of bodybuilding books and that kind of stuff as well. And it was more basically for programs, for things to train, to understand how to eat right and that kind of thing, like, so. More sports specific, really more so than bodybuilding. And I did that probably for a few years. And when I was about, I'd say 23, 24, I had to give up football due to injuries. So I broke both my ankles. So, and that was that was a nightmare.
How did you do that? Was that in the game, or was it like on the
so I was playing a game, and I went up to catch a ball, landed on the outside of my foot and broke my ankle, my left ankle. And that was a bad one. So I was out for about a year. It was pretty nasty. And then I came back, and 2 games into the season, when I came back, I broke my other ankle, and I was like, "Oh man, I've had enough of this." At that stage, like, I had my son. He was only a baby, and I couldn't pick him up or anything like that, like, so, and work as well. I was working in the bank at the time, and it was just like, man, this is a nightmare, you know, kind of. So at that stage, you know, I was training in Image Gym at that stage. I probably would have started training in Image Gym when I was about 19. And that's in Swords, or it was in Swords, not there anymore. And I was training there, and now the guys there were absolutely sound, like John O'Toole and Joe, his wife, Enda would have been there and that kind of stuff. Like, so Niall Kinsella, Aaron Krunis, some absolutely phenomenal bodybuilders went through the doors there. And they were great. Like, they were just like, look, you know, come down on your crutches, train away. There's no panic, you know, you can work away and that kind of stuff. Like, so, and I did that, you know, and I kind of started getting more and more into the bodybuilding and that kind of thing. Like, so building myself up, getting stronger. And then it was probably about when I was 25, 26, I think 26, I did my first show. So it was kind of like off a whim, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, it was a case of like me training, the boys getting ready for a show, and I was just like, what do you think if I jump in for a show? Like, and they're just like, yeah, go for it. You know, so I probably did about 4 months maybe, and then just jumped up on stage and loved it. You know, it was great. Now, obviously, I came absolutely nowhere. You know, shocking. You know, I probably looked like I was, you know, a lollipop or something like that. Like, you know,
What year would this have been now? Would this have been like 2012?
My first competition was 2011.
2011.
You know, so 10 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's funny because it's like I tell people like the main thing I get from that is like you already had years of training, be it from football or be it from, you know, weights.
Yeah.
So you already had a good few, you know, you had a good base even before you hopped on stage. So it was kind of the same as me. Like I took about 3 years of training with weights as a bodybuilder before I even competed. Like I suppose it's one of the things you see nowadays, and you started like in your mid-20s, so it's like, do you think there's a lot of impatience going on these days? Like guys and girls, you know, they kind of want to do it fast.
Yeah.
And they're not happy when the results don't come their way, you know.
100%.
Like, I mean, how would you deal with that as a coach? I mean,
for me, like, ride the train of low expectations, you know. So stop expecting so much, you know. Like everything you do, absolutely everything you do will reflect, you know, like in the results that you get, you know, like yeah, I mean, there's some shitty decisions sometimes here and there, but that's life, you know, like you accept it. Like, and to be honest with you, if you're getting into this for the glory, you're getting into it for the wrong reasons, you know, like so for me, it was always about being and doing something competitive. It was always about, you know, just enjoying myself, you know, and having a hobby. And it is a hobby, you know, like, so it's kind of like, you know, you look around the bodybuilding scene and there's a handful of guys that you'll say to yourself, okay, these guys have what it takes to push it further, to maybe go pro, to get to that level, because they have genetically it's there. The structure's there from the beginning. But it's not about that, you know, so it's just about having fun. It's about enjoying the sport. You know, I got into it because I was passionate about it. I loved it. I loved training. I loved the hard work I put in and the results that I got back out. You know, going into the gym, seeing all the lads, having a few chats beforehand, and then smashing the session out of it, feeling absolutely wrecked, like you've been in a physical fight, and then, you know, finding your way home, having a bit of food when you get home. I mean, like, you know yourself, man. I mean, like, it was when I started bodybuilding, it was a case of like, sit down on the couch after the training session, have a tin of tuna. You know, there was no protein shakes, there was none of this kind of stuff. Like, so it was cheap and cheerful. You know, you were a student, or, you know, you only started working, that kind of stuff, so you didn't really have a lot of money. So yeah, I mean, like, I loved that. Like, I loved sitting there having a tin of tuna. I thought it was great, you know, getting my protein in after I lived on beans and tuna probably for about 3 or 4 years in college, like, you know. And this is it, man. And like, it was cheap and cheerful. I used to give my mom 50 or 60 pounds or euros a week, and she'd go off and buy my shopping for me, and it'd be all set then for my week of training and that kind of stuff. Have everything planned out. Everyone looking at me like an absolute freak in college, opening a tin of tuna at the table. Just stuff like that, dude. Like, you know, like, so, but, you know, this is the stuff you look back on, you're just like, I was willing to do it, you know, when other people weren't willing to do it. Like, so, you know, and it all adds up, you know, the years add up, you know, so that's what it comes down to.
Did you prep yourself when you first did your first show, or did you kind of just, you know, ask the lads?
So it was a case of like, my first show, 2011, and I had been in the gym, in that particular gym, I'd say, like I said, probably about 5 or 6 years. And again, like, it was just training on and off. It was enjoying myself. It was learning. John O'Toole there, he was a mentor to me. You know, like, so more so a life mentor than a bodybuilding coach. You know, like, so he taught me a lot, you know, about life and about myself, self-worth. You know, taught me a lot about self-worth, how to look after myself, in terms of, like, you know, understanding that happiness comes from within, you know, and then what to expect from myself, you know, in terms of, like, you know, the work you put into something, you're gonna get it back out. So there was a lot of chats and a lot of, you know, him really giving his time to, like, me, but he did it for a lot of the guys, you know, like so. And we really built a serious community down there, you know, so it was a case of, like, you know, a lot of friendships, that kind of stuff, like, so, which was great, you know. And then from that, like, so obviously you picked up information on, you know, what you need to do to diet, what you need to do to train, all that kind of stuff. And we would discuss it as well, you know, what do you think of this training style, what do you think of that, you know, food wise, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff, like, so. And Joe, his wife, probably would have done a lot of the diets for most of the guys down there. So the likes of Niall, at the time, the likes of Aaron, the likes of the likes of Tom Calorie, those kind of lads, like, so. No, I decided to do it for myself. I was like, look, I was just like, I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm going to see how I get on, like, so, you know. Now, the guys were busy and all that kind of stuff, and I was just like, look, I just want to jump on board, you know. So I was like, look, if I ask you a few questions, do you mind helping me out and that kind of stuff as we go? And they're like, yeah, of course, no problem whatsoever. So they were always happy to help. So at that stage, my first show, I did absolutely everything by myself, which was great. And this is the thing I tell people, you know, everyone wants to be, I'm going to do a show, but I'm not big enough. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not the other. And already what's happening is people have decided they have a million excuses before they even start something, you know. And it's like, wet your feet, just jump in head first, learn how to swim, you know. And at the end of the day, all you want to do is see if you like it or not, you know. I fell in love with it. The minute I stepped on stage, fell in love with it. And look, I'm by no means a showman, you know, that kind of way. So I'm not a great poser, I'm not anything like that, like, so. It was just a case of, like, here's me showing off my hard work, you know. So, and I really enjoyed it. It was competitive because backstage all the lads were getting ready. A few of us knew each other, so we were chatting and that kind of stuff. But, you know, it was a case of, like, right, when everyone gets on stage, let's bust each other, you know, that kind of way. So let's try really hard to beat each other here, you know. So and it felt great, you know. Everyone came off stage shaking hands, hugging, that kind of stuff, like, so. But we were on stage, we were fighting, you know, and you could feel the tension, you know. It was brilliant. And it's still going, like, with a lot of the time, like, so. But yeah, I mean, like, it was, for me, it was instant, you know. I was just like, man, I came off stage and I was like, I'm going to the gym tomorrow and I'm getting straight back on it, you know. So 2012 is going to be my year, you know, like, so. And that was the mindset the minute I stepped off, you know. So it was brilliant, you know. I loved it.
Now, like, going forward though, like, obviously you did your first show, but I think your big break, I suppose, in terms of the competitive scene, you won the PCA Irish Open, didn't you? So would you say that was your best competitive placing so far, or, like, how did it go up until then?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, I suppose, like, I competed in 2012, and that was my novice year, so that was, like, I really put the head down, you know. So it was a case of, like, right, you know, I want to go back and I want to get what the other guys got. I want to get a place in, you know. So I seen, like, you know, Tom Calorie win, and, you know, he was in the same gym as me, and I was like, dude, you looked unreal, you know. I really want to, you know, emulate what you've done, you know. So, like, you know, it was a case of, like, right, okay. I went back to the gym, said it to John, and said, look, I want to really, you know, push it. And he's like, yeah. He's like, go for it, man. He goes, you have everything it takes. You know, you train hard enough, you're dedicated. He goes, you just need to give it time. And I was like, fine. So went back, got stuck into the gym. Shows came around the following year. Didn't miss a beat, didn't miss a meal. And we had, first of all, it was the two competitions coming up. So it was the Mr. Ireland and the Nationals, down in Limerick. So Mr. Ireland came up. That was great. Got myself into great nick. Was very happy with the package that I brought. I actually tried a diuretic the night before, and it completely flattened me out. You know, like, and I couldn't get a pump for love or money backstage, and I was like, oh man, this sucks. But it was what it was, you know, kind of way. Like, so I mean, like, bodybuilding is all about experimenting as well, like, so, and understanding if things work or not, like, so. So I think I used like a Lasix or half a Lasix or something like that, like, so. And I literally just went flat as a pancake. No, it was fine, you know. I got up on stage, did my thing and that kind of stuff, and I ended up coming third place.
Really?
So I finished in third. I think it was about 7 or 8 competitors. So I finished third. I think it was in the same class as Neil Farrell won that year, actually. He won the novice category, and my God, man, he was inside out for that. He could have done class 3, and Brian Hickey done class 3, and he could have pushed Brian. Now Brian won class 3, and I think he won the overall that year. Yeah, he won the overall that year as well. Yeah, and I know Brian was like, oh shit, you know, Neil was pretty good. If he was in my class, it might not have been as decisive, like, you know, that kind of way. But he was solid. You know, Neil was very, very good. That was one of the best I've seen him, and that kind of gave Neil a massive name from them, because people were so shocked, you know, when he came from nowhere. And then I was like, right, okay, get my shit together. I had, I think, about 3 or 4 weeks between the competitions. So I was like, right, I'm going to change up my training style a little bit. I'm going to recover a little bit more. So I moved more to kind of like a DY system during the 8th, and ended up training 4 days a week. And I added in some extra cardio. Not too much, but just some extra cardio. And I probably brought it down about 4 kilos. And I was inside out. Like, didn't use any diuretics, nothing like that. Like, so, and there was about 16 competitors, I think, for the novice. And at that stage, I mean, there was no real social media. You know, I think Facebook was kind of an infant at that stage. You know, so no one knew really anything that was going on. There was a bit of talk, you know, as there always is, like, so-and-so is going to whop this and that kind of thing. Like, so. And I remember stripping down in the room with a few of the lads, and they were just like, oh, for fuck's sake. And I kind of knew at that stage, I was just like, if I'm getting this reaction backstage, I was like, right, I've got a chance. Yeah. So, you know, stayed backstage. It was, you know what, it was probably the nicest backstage situation I've ever had. It was so relaxed. There was 3 or 4 of us to a room. And you know the way Limerick is. 3 or 4 of us to a room. And we just chilled. You know, from the morning time all the way till we got on stage, we just chilled. We were kind of snacking and things like that. Like, so, talking about different things and that kind of stuff. So it was really nice. Got on stage, and just really fought hard for it. Like, so I think I did about 4 or 5 call outs. You know, like, so I was wrecked. So top call outs, like, so. So yeah, so I got off stage, went back to the crowd, and John and Joe were there, and they were like, you have this. And I was just like, what? I was shocked, you know, so I was like, what? So yeah, so I ended up winning the National Novice then 2012. And that was huge, you know, that really kind of boosted my confidence, probably too much at that stage. And I was like, man, this bodybuilding stuff's easy. You know, I'm going to go on now and I'm going to start kind of like pushing more shows and this kind of stuff, like, so. Obviously at that stage, you know, is a case of, right, what's next? You know, how do I get to that next level of senior bodybuilding and really step it up against the big boys, you know, from my novice position?
I mean,
you know, and realistically,
listening, like, people don't realize, like, you and me know this, but there was first timers, there was novice, and then there was the juniors, and there was, I think it was the open men. So obviously all the weight classes, the high classes.
Yeah.
But that was it. I mean, I think IBBF had its own version of classic back then. But it wasn't like,
it wasn't a big thing, like, you know, you probably got 2 or 3 guys in it, like, you know. But like I said, like, that's 15 guys. There used to be 20. I think when I first did the show on my first timers, there was 30 guys. You know, and it was nuts, man. Like, you either did bodybuilding or you did nothing. You know, there was no men's physique, there was no, you know, other categories and stuff like that, like, so, like classic or that kind of thing, like, so it was just, all right, jump in there, see what you're made of, you know. And do you know what the exciting thing was? Like, it was a case of like, all right, I'm not there yet, but I will be there in 2 years' time, you know. So, and I'll keep training throughout those 2 years to make sure that I fit in and look. The whole thing was to look like a bodybuilder, you know, that kind of way. Like, so, I mean, I remember, I think I did 2014, and that was I prepped under Mark Getty for that, and that was the first time someone turned around to me and go, man, you look like a bodybuilder. You know, like kind of way, like so. And that was a lovely moment. That was one of those things, like, so, you know, if you know, if you play, say for example, you play golf and you're absolutely horrendous and you hit that one good shot and someone's like, man, that's a fucking unbelievable shot. And that keeps you coming back. You know, when you hear things like that, like, so, yeah, it really keeps you coming back, like, you know. So for me, you know, when I heard that, like, you know, it's just like, I'm on the right path now, you know. So, and that was my first real step into senior bodybuilding. You know, it was 2014 after a bit of a shambles I had in the Spring Classic that year, actually. You know, so, and that was my worst ever show. And that was an absolute car crash. You know, so I still look back at that and I'm just like, what was I thinking?
Was it like last minute peaking or something, or was it like?
No, do you know what the thing was, man? Like I was saying, like from 2012 winning that, I went into 2013 and I was like, right, so I'm not going to compete in 2013. I'm going to spend a year putting on size. And I think I was about 84 kilos when I competed in 2012 for the novice. And I went from 84 kilos from that show up to 121 kilos, you know. So, you know, I did that under JP at the time. So I was coaching under him at the time. And JP was renowned. Like, he's an all-around brilliant coach. But at the time, he was renowned for getting guys big. You know, so it was a case of like, you know, here we go. Like, so this is your transformation now that we're going to do, is we're going to put on some proper size. So yeah, so I really pushed the envelope in terms of food, training, all that kind of stuff. Like, so, and you know, it was great. I was super strong, you know, so I was like front squatting 180 for 6 reps and, you know, deadlifting 260 for reps and different things like that. Like, so, and the training style and all, I really enjoyed and that kind of stuff. Like, so, so it was great, you know, and then I came to the competition and I don't know what it was. I was just like, you know, I think I need to do the under 90s, you know, and he was like, yeah, let's go for it. So we dieted down from 121 kilos to 88 kilos or something like that. Like, so, and I looked like a flip-flop, you know, so there was like no definition. It was just like, oh, wow, this is awful. And I was like, I think I stood up on stage, I just hung my head in shame. I was just like, I don't even think I even wanted to pose, you know, so, and it was a case of like, all right, well, you know, take your medicine. And I ended up getting back out of that and I was like, oh man, I'm not going to compete again for a while. And then about a week later, I got over it. You know, I fucking, you know, stopped sulking. And I got myself back in the gym and I was like, right, okay, let's go. We're going to do October. So I did that. And I was talking to Neil Farrell at the time, like, so we were good friends. And he's like, look, give Mark Getty a call, you know. So so I did. I gave Mark Getty a call, and he got me back on track with some nutrition, that kind of stuff. I've always kind of taken care of my own training. At that stage, I had moved off the kind of heavy duty training into more white tree tea, so like Neil Hill style training. And that was great. That was giving me a new lease of life as well. Like, so it's just something different. My joints weren't sore and that kind of stuff. Like, so, so I was pushing that, and Mark was taking care of my nutrition, and I used to travel up to him probably once a week, and just do check-ins with him and that kind of stuff. Like, so probably for about, I think I did the diet for about 12 weeks. Then I stepped into the Mr. Ireland, and I think I came 5th. In the open class, which was great. I think I ended up beating the likes of Hugh Donovan and stuff like that. Like, so in the previous year, he had won the Mr. Ireland and the Nationals as well. Like, so, so he'd done the double overall. And you know, it was just nice. Took a couple of nice scalps, and kind of like, you know, just made myself, oh look, you know, Paul's on the scene now. Like, so, so for me that was a real rebound. You know, it was more of a win, to be honest with you, for me personally. At that stage, so I was like, all right, okay, this is brilliant, you know, I'm back in the game now and this is where I need to progress forward from. Like, so and I think Lachlan Gannon ended up winning the class that I was in, plus he won the overall that year. And he looked great, you know, like an eye. Like, so I have a couple of shots of me posing beside him and that kind of stuff, and it's just like, man, it's great to be on the stage with him, you know. I think that was the first and only time I've ever been on the stage with Lach. Like, so so it's nice to kind of say that, you know, like, so with someone that's like a bodybuilding legend in Ireland like himself. Like, so So yeah, so it was pretty cool, you know. And then from there, then it was again just pushing forward and moving forward again, like so to the next stage.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously along those times as well, like so you're progressing as a trainer and that kind of stuff as well, like
I
so.
was gonna
From
ask
what
you,
you're
were you coaching people at this point, or were you kind of just still doing your own bits and bobs and just
competitively, yeah, competitively, I'd helped a couple of guys
okay.
at that stage. So a couple of guys that I trained with actually, Jay Beasley and Mark as well, like so. So you know, at that stage, it kind of being the case of like, all right, well, I train with these guys, so I'm going to help them compete, you know, and help them get up on stage and that kind of stuff, like so. With training and nutrition, that kind of stuff, like so. And at that stage, I was kind of really starting to find my feet in terms of like nutrition. I was doing a couple of courses, and I was getting more into the PT side of things, like so as well, like so. I didn't have a massive interest in coaching competitors at that point, more so in, you know, kind of PT and stuff like that, like so. So that's where I kind of, you know, started from, like so. And I kind of felt more comfortable doing that, to be honest with you. I just, you know, I think you really have to, you know, gain the experience, you know, the kind of way, like so, and understand. I mean, there's more information out there now, so people can progress further, quicker. But at the time, it was a case of, you know, gaining experience as the years went by. Because we just, you know, the information wasn't as readily available, you know, the kind of way, like so. And as much as you read and that kind of stuff, like so, I'm a big believer that, you know, knowledge without experience is kind of bullshit, like so. So I'm a big believer in matching the two of them, you know, like kind of so, and they should match together, you know, like kind of if you can have the same amount of experience as you have knowledge, you're always going to be onto a winner, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I just tell
you
people
know,
up front, like I'd always say to people, like I would never have you do something that I haven't tried myself.
exactly.
But on the back end of that, you know, that might not suit some people. They might want some, you know, something a bit more specific. Whereas, you know, you find your niche. I mean, like with myself, like, you know, I'm stepping away from coaching, but I've always had a huge respect. Like I'm getting more into the gym business itself. But for people who are coaches and full-time coaches, you know, I've always had a huge amount of respect for it because like I'm happy just to coach one or two people, you know what I mean? Like I had one junior who's gonna do all the spring shows, and obviously, you know, with what's going on, like you can't do them. But I was kind of just happy to finally have somebody up on stage, you know. I was kind of like, if I just want to get him in better shape than I've been in, like that would be a win for me.
Yeah.
But like with yourself, like who was your first like what was it like getting your first client up on stage? I mean, did you feel like not relief?
Yeah, it was great, you
Yeah.
know. No, it's a proud moment, you know.
Yeah.
So like it is a really proud moment. Like, I mean, all my clients will tell you, you know, when I'm watching them on stage, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat, you know. So it's a case of me nearly being on stage with them, you know, like kind of like so. I'm screaming at them, I'm shouting, I'm encouraging, you know. So you know, I'm just as much as I'm locked into what their plans need to do, I'm just as, you know, the same emotions are there, you know. So it's the same kind of like, you know, nervous excitement and that kind of stuff, like so. So I mean, like, you know, I do try and kind of emulate what they're feeling, what they're going through. Obviously through experience, I know what it feels like. But also at the same time, you know, I'm so excited for them, that I just want them to absolutely love it the same way I've loved it. And I suppose, like, you know, for me, all the way through the coaching, when it comes to competitors, you know, so there is that kind of like, you know, you do build that relationship or that friendship, you know, so where it's a case of like, you know, trying to help them understand, you know, that this just isn't about a trophy, you know, it's about an experience, a path of growth, you know, all this kind of like, you know, self-building, and that kind of stuff, like so. So I do try and kind of push that home, that there's more to this, you know. With bodybuilding, it's probably improved my life more than anything else, you know, like kind of like so, in terms of like, you know, me as a person overall. You know, so like, I mean, the problem with bodybuilding is it gets bashed so much, man, you know, because people go in with the wrong ideas, the wrong expectations, you know. So, and it's if you break it down, it's bodybuilding, you know, but you're building your mind, you're building your personality, you're building, you know, yes, your muscles and that kind of stuff, like so. but you know, it's to improve you as a person, you know, the kind of way, like, so. And if you're just looking at it as a vanity thing, then you're always going to be disappointed, man. You know, it's like living your life through Tinder, you know, it's full of disappointment, you know, the kind of way, like, so. There might be one or two, you know, happy cases, but you know, you're always going to have that situation where you're just like, man, there's so many weirdos on this. You know, instead of just meeting someone in a natural way, like, you know, the kind of way, so, or trying to get to know somebody differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, you know, bodybuilding is really, you know, it's helped a lot of people that I know. You know, the kind of way, so, in changing their life and that kind of stuff, like, so.
I think it's
But
discipline.
I suppose, like
I think
yeah,
it's like any kind of effort you put into a prep or an off season, like one of the things I would always instill in people, myself anyway, is like the off season is, you know, it's important. I mean, it's not, you're not taking a break in the sense of, you know, taking a break. It's just eating more instead of less, but making sure that you're getting on top of eating.
that's
But
it.
with that
Yeah.
comes discipline, you know, and then like I've always found, um, I've never, like, I have prepped two people. I prepped two men's physique guys. Um, Now it was probably a mistake at the time to do it, because I kind of figured halfway through they didn't want it, you know, so they didn't really want
Okay.
to suffer to get into that place of condition, that true condition. So what ended up happening was they competed. I actually dropped one of the guys 2 weeks out, um, because I said, look, I know you haven't been listening to anything. And I pretty much dropped an ultimatum on him. And I showed him two pictures, one from the start and one from the end. And I was like, do you really think if you had followed everything that you would have stayed stationary? So, but I find, like, when you work with somebody during the off season, um, I think it's a bit easier when you diet them down. Like, I mean, if you found when you've got somebody who wants to work
Yeah.
with, once you get a bit of a chance to work with their body, you kind of figure it out, as opposed to, can you get me ready in
Yeah.
12 weeks? Like, that's what happened there. So it was kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, building a relationship with people, you know. And what you need to do is you need to create an understanding of what needs to be done when it comes to, like you said, it's a lifestyle. So you want to build a lifestyle to the point where you're just like, right, can you do this when the pressure isn't on, and can you do it when the pressure is on? You know, so, and obviously, you know, with the off season type of thing, like, yes, the calories are going to be slightly higher, the training could be heavier, etc. All this kind of stuff. The cardio could be less, but what you're doing is you're preparing them to push into a prep, you know. So it's a case of like, okay, well, this is the lifestyle. Now you're going to continue the lifestyle, but we're going to make alterations, you know. So you've shown me that over the last 6, 8, 12 weeks that you can actually follow a plan, you know, and you are coachable. So now after that, you know, and after being happily seeing you do it, you can definitely push into a prep if you want to. Like, I've never approached anyone to do a competition, you know, so I've never kind of said to somebody, you should do a competition, that kind of stuff, like, so. I'm not that type of person, you know, kind of, so, you know, at the end of the day, if people want to compete, it should come from within, you know, so, and it shouldn't come from someone stroking their ego, going like, Jesus, you'd be great on stage, you look amazing, blah blah blah. And you hear that a lot of times, you know, kind of, so with coaches and that kind of stuff, like, so it's like they're trying to make a name more for themselves, so they try and go and approach certain people to make them look better. You know, at the end of the day, you know, when you're a coach, it's about the client. You know, that's your employer. You know, at the end of the day, you know, they employ you, they pay you, you know, so, and they trust you, you know, so, and at the end of the day, you know, you're working for them, you know, and you need to make it about them as well, you know, so it can't be about the coach. So suppose, like, you know, when it comes down to all my clients, like, so, I mean, there's always a sense of pride. There's always a sense of teamwork and togetherness. You know, and that's super important, you know, the kind of way, so, especially kind of like, as you were saying, as a coach, you know, you want, you know, people following what you want to do, but at the end of the day, you want the best for them, you know, the kind of way, so, and if they're not willing to do that, then they have to question, you know, are they doing it because they like the idea of it, or do they actually want to live the lifestyle, you know, the kind of way, so, and if you live the lifestyle, you're making these changes to benefit you overall, rather than like a vanity thing, like we've talked about, like, so, you know. So in that case, yeah, it's it.
No, I totally agree with you. It's like, I found, like, I think, like people go on about the competitive scene being diluted. I don't think it's being diluted at all. I think it's just a case of there's different avenues. So it's like you won't necessarily get somebody like when I got into bodybuilding 11 years ago, like it was just bodybuilding. There was because there wasn't anything else. You were kind of forced to live the lifestyle prematurely. So I remember the first diet I did. It was a contest prep diet. I didn't know what it was. Like I just did it because it was 6 meals a day, and it was like sweet potato, chicken, eggs, and I think it was grand. You know, I didn't really get big off it or anything. But looking back on it, you know, it's quite funny because it's like I was 16 years old and I was eating, you know, a bodybuilding meal plan. Whereas nowadays, you know, it's definitely it's more of, as I said, it hasn't been diluted because you will get the people who want to do it, but it's trying to get there. It's essentially there's more people doing it, but they're not all necessarily putting in the work that needs to be done. So it's like they do tend to drop away. Like they might do a show or two, then you won't see them again. You know, it'll be the guys who really want it, and the girls. You know, like you'll recognize them. You may not see them for a couple of years, but people need time off to improve as well. So it's like, you know, you probably recognize, like even with your own clients and like all the guys in the scene, like you go to a show, you kind of know everybody who's there at this point, like all the figures. Yeah.
Of course you do, you know.
But I suppose like moving.
Well, that's it. Like I mean, like you can get to.
Yeah, no, go on. Yeah.
No, you get to know all the guys, you get to know all the girls, and you get to know the coaches, that kind of stuff. Like so, at the end of the day, everyone's really nice. You know, kind of so because they're there for the same reasons. You know, and this is it. You know, I'm a pretty quiet guy, like so I don't really kind of, you know, mix it. I'm just keeping myself for the most part, like so. You know, I'm not big on social media and that kind of stuff, like so. I kind of stay relevant with my work and that kind of thing, like so. But no, I mean, like it's a you know, you do get to know a lot of people like within the industry and that kind of stuff, like so. And everyone is really just doing the same thing as yourself, you know. So the people that are committed to it, the people that are dedicated, and the people that live it day in day out, 100%. You know, so it's fun that way, like so. And there's always new blood coming through. I mean, like, you know, the juniors over the last few years have really kind of bringing through some phenomenal bodybuilders. You know, kind of like so some young guys coming through, like so the likes of
I think there's more junior
Wally and the likes of
yeah. No, I was about to say like I think there's a lot more in your way, like with myself, like even when I was starting off, like I'm from Wicklow, so it's like there was me, and I think there was Christian back then. So it's like me and Christian were pretty much it. From my neck of the woods anyway, like, but then when I got into Dublin, it's like juniors hopping out left and right and centre. I found like Limerick and Galway and Cork and places like that. They had to fire for it. So it's like you'd always go to the shows. You'd see, like, you know, you wouldn't see them any time except that one time a year or twice a year, depending on how many shows you did. But you'd know them. You kind of, it would be rivalries, but it'd be like friendly. You know, I never got into that position.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
the thing is, like, it's healthy. You know, the kind of like competitive. You know, the competitive scene is healthy. You know, the kind of, you need that. You need to have a bit of a rivalry. You need to have a bit of a competitive edge. Like, so there was always that with the guys. You know, like, I mean, going back years and years and years. You know, there's always been that. Like, so, and it keeps things healthy. At the end of the day, no one hates each other. You know, the kind of, so it's more a case of, like, you know, he's a great bodybuilder. You know, I want to beat that guy. You know, the kind of, like, so, and that will push you. That will drive you. That will motivate you. You know, the kind of, so to train that bit harder. And the days where you don't feel like, you know, you can squat, you will squat. You know, the kind of, like, so, and this is what it's all about. You know, you go into the gym with that mindset of, like, well, I know he's going to be doing it right now, so I better get my ass in gear and make sure that I'm doing it. You know, so you don't want to miss your cardio sessions. You know, no meals missed, no training sessions missed. You know, like, and so, and it's the case of, like, how much are you willing to suffer, you know, to beat the next guy, you know, so, and that's what bodybuilding's all about, man. You know, like, and so, in its essence, you know.
Well, that's it, man. But I mean, like, going forward, did you you had already kind of established yourself on the scene before you won. So when you finally got to that stage of winning, like walk me through, what do you think won it for you, and like who was prepping you at the time and stuff? I mean, this is 2016, so I mean, you obviously
So 2016 was a really good year in terms of like, you know, me pushing on. I had kind of 2015 was a good transition year for me. So I'd like really kind of made a reputation as a PT. I'd moved out to West Side, and you know, things were starting to pick up and move along for me in that sense. You know, I had my kids at the time and that kind of stuff as well, like, so 3 kids. So, you know, I was living a pretty rounded life. And I was like, right, okay, it's time to up the game now. It's time to push forward. So 2015, I started training with Shay, Devlin, and Neil Farrell. You know, we were like the 3 amigos, you know, at that stage, like, so. So it was really, really good. Like, so we like had the same training time every day. We meet up, we train, we all work together. It was like a little family, man. It was brilliant, you know, the kind of way, like, so. Great buzz, great friendships, and at that stage, I was like, right, I need to go to the next level. So I ended up getting in contact with Dante Trundell, okay, so or Trudell, and I was really interested in DC training. So I contacted him and I was like, look, I was just like, what's the story with getting trained up on this? You know, can you teach me how DC training? I really want to know the ins and outs of it. Like, so I've been reading as much information as I can on it, but I want to know from the person who created it. And he's like, look, man, he's like, I don't train people anymore. He's just like, I'll put you in touch with a guy, and he's like my student, you know, kind of, so he knows everything, and he will like have you, you know, doing the right things and that kind of stuff, like, so. So I got in touch with Dusty Hanshaw at the time, and yeah, it just went from there, like, so. And it was crazy, like, you know, DC training was.
Dusty well, man. Like, I've listened to his podcast. I listen to Dusty every week, so I feel like I know who he is at this point, you know, like that's deadly.
Yeah, he's definitely a bit of a celebrity at this point, like on Instagram and that kind of stuff, like, so. He's a cool guy, he's a funny guy, like, so. And you know, his podcasts and his, you know, Insta stories and that kind of stuff, like, so, are they're always entertaining, you know. But no, yeah, very, very simple guy, like, so you're kind of getting like, you know, if you could think like a training style from Dante and the nutrition style from Chris Aceto, you know, so you're kind of getting a mix of that, like, so. So it was like, you know, and it's gas, like, you know, because Dusty is a real, you know, he's a personality, you know, so. But when it comes to coaching, man, it's just so basic, you know, so. And this is what works, you know, and this is what people want: flashy, flamboyant, sexy, and it's just like, man, just keep it simple. You know, and this is what we've always been told from when we start bodybuilding: is keep it simple, stupid. You know, and it was a case of like, right, okay, get down to training, learn DC, and start progressing my lifts and that kind of stuff, like, so. And we did that. You know, we pushed really hard. Off season went flyingly. I think I put on about 16 kilos in the off season, and that was all on TRT. So it was a case of like, you know, okay, step away from the drugs and, you know, really start to understand your training and nutrition, you know, so, and it works, you know, the kind of way, like, so. And since then, you know, it's been a case of like 90% of my off season has always been TRT now, you know, the kind of way, like, so. So since 2016, 90% of my off season has always been TRT. And then when it comes to, you know, pushing that one cycle a year or pushing that diet cycle or whatever it is, like, so. Yeah, you push it, you know, so, and you get the benefits out of it, you know, so, and that's the way it goes.
But you give yourself a break. That's the thing people need to realize. Like I find it
getting old now, man, you know.
I know, I quite funny. It's quite funny though. It's like it's like the mentalities behind that side of things has changed so much. Like one of the reasons I kind of, you know, it's I feel kind of out of touch because like I used to just go cold turkey. So I remember like the first few times I competed, I'd go on for the shows and then I'd just come off. I trained naturally for about half the year, if not more. And then I think it was only I suppose I had my first real off season. Geez, about 3 years ago now. Yeah, no, it is 3 years ago. And I remember it was nice because it was two things. It's like I felt like, as you were doing there, taking the breaks and everything, when you did want to go and push, your body just went like from this to up there. Like it did respond, like you felt fresh.
Yeah.
But with Dusty, like it's obviously just the training and the food is obviously on point. So like with the DC stuff, from what I kind of understand, like I wouldn't be too versed in it. My training is either just my training's really basic. Like it's like I have my own techniques and stuff, but I've never gone like and done DC or like any of the Neil Hill training or any of that stuff. So like I've always found it interesting. So like with the DC, is it kind of like supersets or is it like cluster sets and that kind of stuff with the rest pauses and?
No, man. So rest pause is the main proponent. So rest pause to the point where it's like, say, for example, you're doing an incline Smith machine press and you've got one working set. So you'll have your build-up sets. Okay. So what you do is obviously, you don't tire out on any of those build-up sets. You keep your energy pretty fresh. So you're just doing a few reps on each set just to get the nervous system ready for what the next weight is going to be as such. So you'll have your weight set for your working set, and you'll hit that. The whole point is to work off rep ranges that progress you. Okay. So for example, you have say 3 plates on an incline press Smith machine, and you're like, right, okay, so my target is 15 repetitions total. Okay. So first set, you're aiming to fail around 8 repetitions. Okay. And what you do then is you rest 20 seconds or around 15 deep breaths. Okay. And what you do then is go straight back into the next set and you fail again. Usually you're going to fail around 3 or 4 reps. Okay. So now at this stage, you want to have a spotter as well. Okay. So it's definitely important to have a spotter. And then you rest again for the same time, about 15 deep breaths or about 20 seconds. And you fail again. So you're looking at about 2 reps, maybe 3 reps. Yeah. Now on your last failure set, what you're doing is you're focusing on bringing the last concentric rep. Okay. So, and then what you're doing is you're working very slow on your negative. So you actually finish on a negative. Yeah. Okay. So each set you finish negatively. After that, then that's it. That's your chest done. Okay. Yeah. So for that workout. So it's a push workout. So it's one exercise for chest. What you do after that then is you go into a dumbbell fly, and you do a holded or a loaded stretch on a dumbbell fly, and you hold it for about 60 seconds. Okay, so and that's going to stretch the fibers and it's going to bring a lot of blood in there as well through isometric tension. And then you move on to your shoulder movement. So in your shoulder movement could be a dumbbell press, could be a Smith machine press, but pretty much the same thing. And then you'll move on to your tricep movement. For me, arms were always a weak point, so I actually had 2 tricep exercises. So it'd be like dips and skull crushers, so yeah, again, like there was small manipulations to it to kind of benefit my body type or my body shape. But yeah, the progress in it was phenomenal. My back progress was ridiculous. Yeah. So at that stage, from where I went to like.
Did you find because even listening to hear you talk about that, I've done that kind of training before, or I've done aspects of it. I've just never got told to do it. I've always kind of said I'm going to try and stick in this, and I've been told very similar stuff. I think it was Christian who probably showed me a lot of the stuff. But did you find when you increase the intensity and you reduce the overall volume, that your body just you recovered a bit better?
Grew.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, you just grow so much better. Like we all train to, probably add in too much or don't eat enough or whatever it is. So, and you'll spend 2 hours, training, and you just do it because you love it, So, whereas realistically, those sessions were lasting me an hour max, and I was growing hand over fist, So, But yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's hard to kind of constantly, you know, work like that when you just want to do an extra set or you want to do a little bit more, like so. But trust me, like, I mean, like, the muscles were smoked, you know, like so. The muscles were definitely smoked. You know, it was more a case of like, you know, your mind going like, oh well, you know, add in a little bit more chest or add in a little bit more shoulders and this kind of thing, like so. Where it wasn't necessary, you know. So, and it really isn't. Like, I was training 4 days a week, you know, at that stage, and it was just, it was mental, you know, like so. It really was, like so. But it's very taxing as well. Like, after 8 weeks of doing that, man, I was wrecked, you know, so like tired, you know. So I used to have to take probably a week off after every 8 to 10 weeks, and just recover, you know. So, and at that stage, it was a case of like, okay, well, deload or take a week off. And it was like, I'll take a week off, reduce the nutrition, up the cardio a little bit, and just get the blood flowing in the body again, get the recovery going, that kind of stuff again, like so, and then move back into same cardio, same training, same nutrition, you know. So, so again, very repetitive.
Did you do that DC training up into the 2016 shows? Like, were you doing that the whole way up through it?
I did a version of it. Like, so what I did was I kept, when I hit prep, so this is the problem I have, man. When I get to preps, when I get to starting a prep, I always get injured. I don't think I've ever had a show where I haven't been injured during prep. Like, so at 2016, I actually did my L4, L5, probably about 2 weeks before I was supposed to start prep. So I didn't train for 2 weeks before I started prep. Back in 2016, because my back was in a heap, and I literally couldn't walk. Like, I think I was stuck on the gym floor. I was doing rows, and my back just went, and I was like, oh fuck. So yeah, that sucked. So it was a case of like manipulating my training to suit that. Now, I stuck to a push pull legs program, but I just had more volume based in it, and less more supported things, you know. Like, so I couldn't squat, like, so it was like leg press, hack squat. You know, in terms of rows, it was all chest supported movements. In terms of chest and stuff like that, like, so it was probably less dumbbells, more barbell and machines, that kind of stuff, like so. And then there was probably 3 exercises per muscle group, you know. So like, what I did was increase the training volume to help with basically the metabolic output, you know, the kind of way, like so, in terms of like dropping body fat and that kind of stuff, but keeping muscle there as well, like so. So the training effect was still there, and it just had to change based upon an injury. And it was like, it was like, here's the thing with prep, man. I'm lucky, you know, kind of. So when I start a prep, I do very little changes from the start to the finish. Very little changes. Like, for me, I think I changed my diet once or twice throughout a 16-week prep. Okay. And my cardio went from 20 minutes to 45 minutes max on my cardios. And again, I think in terms of fat burners, I added them in towards the end, and they were very minimal, you know, like, like so. So it was, you know, for me, like, once I make changes that my body can run with, it just keeps going, you know, like, like so. It's crazy, you know, like, it's for me, I'm just very lucky that way. But again, it's just trying to, what I've always kind of understood is that, you know, you will always try and get the most from the least. Okay. In terms of changes. So for example, if you need to make a change in terms of your diet and that kind of stuff, reduce a small amount of something, wait for changes to occur, and then wait till you maximize those changes and make more changes. And only change one thing at a time, you know. So for example, you know, don't do, you know, a food and a cardio at the same time, for example, and that kind of stuff, like so. If it's food you're dropping, drop food, wait for the changes to happen. If it's cardio, add the cardio, wait for the changes to happen. Because at least you know what's doing the work, you know, like so.
Would you
know,
rather
it was a simple case of that.
Would you rather drop more food or drop more would you rather drop more food or add in more cardio for yourself? Like, what do you feel?
For me, there's a sweet spot. Yeah, I mean, like, if I do too much cardio, I get very stringy, you know, especially my legs, you know. And you know, if you're using cardio to really drop yourself down, you know, there will come a point where if you lose your legs, it's just so hard to get them back, you know. So, and for me in 2016, that was kind of the case, you know, kind of like, so my cardio wasn't crazy by any means, but it was doing the trick, you know, kind of like, so, and it was getting me, like, I was inside out. I was ridiculously shredded. You know, like there was no fat on the soles of my feet, you know, it hurt when I sat down. Yeah, it sucked, you know, kind of like, I suffered, you know, kind of, so, but I loved it. I loved every minute of it. So it was a case of, you know, my legs started to fade, and my legs were cut to bits, but they had just lost the volume, you know. So it was just a case of where they lost the volume, and it was like, all right, well, you know, we wanted condition because we knew there was going to be guys that were bigger than us, you know, the likes of Damien and that kind of stuff, like, so. So it was a case of like, right, okay, so what do? We can't fight size with size, you know, we have to bring a better condition package. Which we did, you know, kind of, so, and yeah, you know, so,
Well, you won.
I suppose like the question you were saying, no, 2016 I didn't win. 2016. So no, so 2014 was one of those years where you're like, man, I probably could have done a little bit better, you know, in terms of like how I got judged, you know, kind of, so, but you just take it on the chin, you know. I think on the Mr. Ireland I came fourth, you know, so, and it was like, all right, well, I was first or second, you know, so, you know, that's what everyone was saying to me anyway, like Tommy and all the boys in the crowd and all that kind of stuff, like, so, so it was what it was. Then we went down to the RBBF and we did the under 90 nationals, and I came second, again to Damien. He was just a phenomenal bodybuilder, like just genetics coming out the years, you know, like, kind of like, so.
Is this Damien Cornish we're talking about?
Yeah. Good guy. I know Damien years and years and years. I know him about 10 or 11 years. And yeah, he beat me down there again. And yeah, I mean, like, the both times I was super happy with how I looked. It was the best I had ever looked at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, that was great. And that was good. Like, so, I mean, like, you know, me and Dusty worked a little bit longer after that. And then it was just a case of like, okay, well, look, I haven't really planned anything for 2017. So I'm just going to go on my own then. And just keep training, etc., that kind of stuff, like, so. Then 2018 came around, and, you know, in January, I was like, you know what, I'm in a good position here. I'm not in bad shape. Definitely think I could push a prep, you know, so. And it was a case of like, okay, well, I'll do the Spring Classic and I'll do the PCA. And I think that was the second year or third year the PCA was on up in Belfast, and the Irish Open. Yeah. And that prep I did by myself. And it was a case of like, okay, well, what do I envision? What do I want to bring to the stage? Instead of like someone pushing me and guiding me to what they might envision me to look like, it was a case of like, what if I do this and what if I do that? And, you know, I used a few little different tactics. I done feckin' no cardio. I think at 4 weeks out, I added in 20 minutes walking a day, you know, kind of like, so. And it was more a case of like how to manipulate my blood glucose and that kind of stuff, like to get the best from my carbs. And I did that using kind of like different kind of insulin protocols and stuff like that, like, so, which worked quite well for me. So I was kind of, you know, I was like, all right, okay, well, this works well, like, so. And yeah, I mean, like, for me, it was my favorite package in terms of like condition and fullness, you know, like, kind of like, so. I felt like I looked full everywhere, you know, like, kind of like, so. And my condition was crazy. My waist was tiny. You know, and I really kind of, I knew before I stepped on stage I'd won, you know, like, kind of like, so. It was a case of like standing backstage with the lads, and they were just kind of giving me that look, and I was like, I just turned to my girlfriend and I was just like, oh yeah, I've won this, you know, like, kind of like, so. And she's like, what? And I was just like, yeah, I've won this. And like, I wasn't being cocky or anything like that. I just was confident in the package that I had brought, you know. And I enjoyed then getting on stage, and it was very relaxed, you know, kind of like, so. And I had I think 4 weeks previous I competed in the Spring Classic, and I came second to Thomas Cervenka, you know.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, and that was in the heavyweights. So I was pretty happy with that as well. Definitely like gave him a good run. You know, and it was a few judges said like, you know, oh well, you know, you're doing pretty well there, like, so, you know, you could have nipped it a little bit, but you know, Thomas just had mountains of muscle, you know, kind of like, so, and it's, you know, it's hard to kind of, you know, overshadow that, like, so with only condition, you know, kind of like, so, but no, I mean, like, looking at the shots and that kind of stage shots and that kind of stuff, like, so, I was definitely thereabouts. So I was happy with that, and then went up to PCA in Belfast and won that, like, so, won that class. So I was happy with that as well, like, so. I think IB won the overall that year. So just, you know, one of those, you know, flex wheeler like physiques, you know, round muscle bellies and muscle hanging off him, even though he's about 80 kilos or something like that, like, so just looked about, you know, 95 kilos, you know, it's just crazy looking. But I mean, no, yeah, I mean, like,
it's like certain guys, it's like just have to. I think it's like a lot of those guys like IB and I competed with Giovanni, and I know he trains out in Westside every so often, like, and he was training with me for the whole year of 2019, pretty much. And he was natural for heaps of it, and I remember just watching the guy train, and I was like, if only he trained a bit harder, and if only he, like, I don't know what he's doing now. Like, he's obviously doing a bit more now, but back then it was kind of just watching him, and I was like, if he trained like somebody who didn't have the really good genetics trained, he'd be he's a freak already. But like, there's like, even with Wally and certain fellas, like, they just need a guide. You know, it's like there's so much raw talent and so much raw potential.
Yeah.
And I think like their time will come, but at the same time, I think it gives guys like yourself, you know, who don't slip a beat, a chance to, you know, win over guys who, you know, maybe not, I wouldn't say take the piss, but they definitely kind of rely on certain things. I mean, like I did.
The thing is, like, so, yeah. Well, this is it, you know. I mean, like, you kind of know what your strengths and weaknesses are. You know, for me, my strengths were, you know, my hard work. You know, so my weakness was my genetics. You know, so you know, you kind of just relate to that. You know, it comes naturally. So for guys like, you know, for guys who are naturally, you know, genetically gifted, what happens is they see themselves growing to a point where, you know, the work that they're doing is working. So it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? You know, and what they'll do is they'll grow and grow and grow to that point, and then it will come to a stage where they're like, oh, I got to train a bit harder now, you know. So, but then that's when you see them take off, you know, they're kind of like, so, and it's just a natural thing for them, a natural realization for them, you know, and it does happen, you know. So like, it's not a case of like they need the right person or that kind of stuff. It just naturally comes to them, you know. So, and eventually, you know, so they do really kind of like go to that next level, and you can see it happening with a lot of the guys now, you know, kind of, so hitting those next level stages and that kind of stuff, which is great. You know, it's phenomenal to see. You know, I've worked with, you know, some really good guys. I worked with Wally for when he did the Spring Classic and that kind of stuff, like, so.
He was for that, man. Like, I was looking at pictures of him, because I remember training with him the year prior, and he wasn't in shape whatsoever. Like, he not in stage shape. Like, he was in good off-season shape.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, what we were bent over rowing, and I was like at a point, you know, I could do 170, like, for rows, and I was like happy enough. And then I see him come in, and he does 180, but the way he does it, he's almost touching the bar off the floor, and then rowing it up. And I'm just like, just raw, just strength, you know, just
like, in fairness to the guy, like, I mean, he trains like a maniac, you know. He really trains hard, you know. You know, obviously he trains in Westside and that kind of stuff, like, on and off. I've trained with him and that kind of stuff as well, like, so. And yeah, man, I remember when I first trained him, I was just like, man, you're the Terminator, you know. You just keep going, you know, like, so it's just, you know, no matter like what's hitting him, he just keeps moving, you know. And it was great, man, you know, to see a guy who's like 19, 20 years old, you know, really with that intensity and enjoyment for training, was brilliant to see, you know, like so, because like, you know, you'd see other guys in the gym and they'd be like, nah, you know, more interested in looking how they look in the mirror and that kind of thing, like so. But man, he just wanted to eat the dumbbells, man. He was just picking them up and chomping them down, and it was savage, you know, the kind of way. So, and for a guy like who's been training like nearly 20 years, like for myself, like so, you know, it's refreshing, you know, the kind of way. Like so, when you see that, you know, the kind of way, someone new coming through like that, like so, and just loving the training, nothing else, you know, like kind of way. So just loving that process of getting in and getting dirty with the weights.
Who won the junior class in the spring classic when he did it? I can't remember.
He came second, and there was a guy I think from up the north who won it, like so. So I think the guy that beat him probably just had a bit more legs, you know. So to be honest, you know, it's probably just a bit more size in the legs, you know. So, but overall, like so, it was a close call, you know.
Yeah. Now, like that's one thing I was actually going to bring up with you was weak body parts, because a lot of guys with weak body parts, like, I mean, I've trained with myself, a good example would probably be my chest. You know, it's like I can press till the cows come home, but it took me a long time, like about 3 years, 4 years of training until I realized how to really target my pecs. But with younger competitors, younger trainers, you know, for lacking body parts, like, I mean, I've seen Wally squat, I've seen, like, you know, guys with weak body parts move weight. But do you think it's just a case of, you know, they haven't? I don't think it's an ego thing necessarily. I think it's just some people just don't know at that point.
You have to connect.
Yeah.
You have to connect. So, especially with legs, okay? So, like with legs, if you want to bring up your legs, it's a case of continuous movement, continuous tension. So, if you look at the 3 M's, okay? So, metabolic stress, okay, muscular damage, and mechanical tension, okay? So, you have to make sure that each set you do carries the 3 of them, okay? So, for example, like, so say you getting under a bar, okay? So, and you're like squatting, and you're like, say, I don't know what's a tough weight, say 180, okay? And you're like, okay, I can get 6 reps with 180. Now, it's down, up, stop. That's what you see, you know? So everyone is taking a break, you know, where they need to be under tension. Yeah. So that should be a continuous 6 reps. So there should be no pause at the top. If you're ever going to pause in a movement, pause where the most tension is, in the stretched position, okay? That'll see how big your balls are, you know? So, and if you're willing to grow muscle, like Paul Hannigan, when he trains legs, is an absolute animal, okay? I've done all, so from the last, kind of since we've worked together, I've done all of Paul's leg sessions, okay? So, and his legs have grown phenomenally since he started training, since he started kind of training towards bodybuilding. But it's like he's on the deck because he can't stand, you know, like so he's crying. You know, it's a case of like, you know, how far you're willing to push it. But what's happening is that the muscle has no other choice but to grow. Okay, like I see guys moving similar weight in the gym, you know, younger, skinnier, that kind of thing, and you're just there saying to them, it's just like, drop the weight back and just make the muscle work, you know. So like, forget about the weight, you know. So what we're mixing up a lot nowadays is, and I'm a big believer in progressive overload, obviously it works, you know, the kind of, so, but it's how to gain progressive overload through hypertrophy. Okay, we can do progressive overload and we're going to get stronger, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to hypertrophy the muscle, you know. And that's a massive thing.
Like, I mean, like just going off on a little tangent, like a lot of coaches I would see, they'd be too focused on the numbers. Like I wrote out a plan for my junior client. Like, he's a 6'2" big dude, like he's just a tall guy. So for me, we were like, we just need to bring up your legs. And he comes from a powerlifting background, so he was able to move weight. But it was figuring out that balance. And I think once he got that connection, it was insane. I think his legs grew about 4 inches, 3 inches, just with the
Yeah.
adductors. And like, you know, when you're looking at a picture as a bodybuilder and you can see all the improvements on each individual body part. But I think it was
100%.
dropping. It was just dropping from, you know, complete progressive overload with the numbers. And, you know, did you find like I mean, with progressive overload with hypertrophy, I always found like doing progressive overload maybe with like a higher volume. Like I always found with legs, like do a cluster set and just try and beat it every
Yeah, I mean, like you can do straight sets, you know, the kind of so, but like, you know, moving into the higher rep range is definitely going to create more muscular tension. You know, the kind of like so doing, you know, 12 reps, 15 reps, 20 reps. We do 50 rep sets sometimes. You know, I used to do 100 rep sets. You know, so
5 sets of 20 on leg press or something, or was it like?
No, it was a case of like rest pause, and so me, Neil, and Shay, you know, when we were training together, it was a case of like, okay, well, load up the leg press, you know, get to the point where we can do 20 to 30 repetitions to failure, and then rest pause every 10 seconds until you reach 100 reps.
Yeah.
You know, so and that was disgusting, man. Like there was times where I stopped halfway through, get up, puke, and then get back down the leg press and finish my set. You know, so and like they'd be dragging you back. You know, you go out the back door, barf, and then they drag you back in, sit you down the leg press again, and they're like, right, you've got 60 more reps to do, you have 50 more reps to do. Let's go. And it was, you know, you're doing it. You couldn't bend your knees afterwards because your legs were so pumped, but like it was nuts, man. You know, the kind of so. But like, you know, all these things, you know, like so how far, you know, it's how much pain you're willing to take. You know, in terms of muscular pain, not joint pain. Obviously, if your joints are getting damaged and hurt, then obviously you know the difference. But with muscular pain, yeah, I mean, like it's how much you can take, especially in certain muscle groups with like legs, shoulders, that kind of stuff. Like so, but connection, you know, to the muscle that you're working is where it's going to be at. You know, so and with that, if you can do that, then you know you're gonna keep growing. You know, so but no, I mean, like you said, man, it's a case of like, you know, stop thinking about, you know, how much you can lift and how you can lift it. You know, so and like your top sets, okay, your working sets should be exactly the same form, tempo, movement as your warm-up sets.
Yeah.
Like an ISO. So if you can manage them the same way with more intensity, then obviously you're onto a winner there. Like so.
Yeah. I mean, with injuries and stuff, I mean, like you've said, you've had injuries going into every single prep. Were you going to compete this year, or what was your plan for this year?
I'm on prep right now, man.
Oh, are you?
So,
so like, hopefully, touch wood, like spring.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Like I prepped last year, as well for Spring Classic, and I was about 6 weeks out, and they cancelled it.
Yeah.
So, you know, at the minute I'm 10 weeks out.
Deadly.
You know, so yeah, like I mean, like things are going well so far. You know, the body's reacting the way it wants to. Again, one change at the start, and I haven't changed anything since. You know, like, and I like so, and that's 6 weeks now where my body's continuously changed each week. So yeah, so it's a case of just kind of.
You working with anybody at the moment, or are you doing it yourself?
Oh, working with Dusty at the minute. Yeah, so back working with Dusty. So it was a case of like, all right, well, I need, you know, it's a case of like, right, I need someone that knows me, and I need someone that's going to keep me accountable. You know, for me, it was a no-brainer. It was just like, look, you know, it's just going to be basic. It's going to be simple. We're going to keep the plan straightforward, and everything he does, I would do exactly the same. But it's a case of like, right, I need someone just to say, right, do that shit, do it now, do it hard, you know. So and for me, it was just a case of getting that done, like so, you know. But yeah, it works well, you know. So I'm happy now doing it. Like so.
You're training, you're able to train and stuff during this lockdown. Like you have a back key or something into a gym, or like
I have access to a few dumbbells, yeah.
That's yeah, no, it's grand. It's a weird situation because it's like, I tell people this, like it's completely your own volition to do a prep during this like environment. Like none of the coaches, none of us can account to when like if it's going to be on or not. Like even where I'm training out of now, at times it's a gym in Bray, and John Carroll trains out of there. I've never done I haven't done an IBBF show since 2017. Like, and it's not like I don't dislike them. It's just simply the way I've always said. I just want to go to the Mystic Universe first and see have a bit of crack at that, and then focus a bit more on you know, the IFBB side of things. Like the PCA has always been great. But John, like going back to the shows, it's like I was even asking John. It's like, John, what's the crack with spring? Like, and he's like, are you still going to be judging it? And he's like, yeah, I think the general plan is like worst to worst, it'll just be a case of increase the entry fees and just do it behind closed doors. And I'd be like, you know what? It's like, if I was a competitor, I wouldn't mind paying a little bit extra just to have the show go ahead.
No, not at all. Not at all. Like, I think it's important for the Irish scene to stay current, you know, the kind of like, so I mean, like, obviously you see the UK still putting on shows and that kind of thing, like, so I think it's important, you know, to keep Irish bodybuilding alive, you know, the kind of like, so you know, it can fall off the map a little bit, I think, if, you know, we start to, you know, kind of forget about it and be like, oh well, you know, I'll just go do a show abroad, you know, instead of, you know, doing a show at home, like, so and I love the Irish shows, you know, kind of like, so for me personally, you know, it's just really fun, you know, you know, obviously to support it and that kind of stuff, but also to be a part of it, like, so but I think it's more a case of, like, for me, you know, lifestyle doesn't change, the food just changes, you know, so like I'm still eating the same foods, I'm still doing the same training, I'm just adding in a little bit of cardio, you know, and that is really about the extent of it, like, so in terms of the changes, so it doesn't, you know, for me, if you're prepping or not, like, you know, it's still the same life, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the simple ins and out of it. I mean, like I mean, the people who really want it will find a way to train. You know, the people who really want to do it will. Like, I mean, like, I can't mention names or anything, obviously. Like, I do have a place. I had a place to train, and let's just say the guards did get involved, but like, it should be back open soon enough. For myself and a few others, you know. But and then obviously with work, you know, I can train when I'm not in the building to do work, so it's not too bad. But like, if you had clients who've gone and they've just like they've done a whole home gym setup, or what would you say, like, the most?
Oh yeah.
Like I mean, I know a few people.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know people who've literally bought full. Well, I mean, like the basics. You know, kind of like racks and benches, barbells, dumbbells, maybe a treadmill, that kind of stuff, like, so. And you know, at the end of the day, it's probably a good investment to make, seeing as we aren't, or things are so uncertain, like, in terms of, you know, what you can and can't do. You know, I mean, like, we're training, like, especially for people who do look at it as a lifestyle, you know, it makes a massive difference to your mental health, you know, kind of like, so obviously for physical reasons and that kind of stuff, like, so but, you know, we all feel better after we do a training session, you know, at the end of the day, and it does make a huge difference for a lot of people, like, so so for that, then, yeah, I think, like, even getting the basics, you know, like, you can do a lot, you know, with very little, you know, couple of dumbbells, barbell, a bench or a rack, and you can do a hell of a lot. There's a lot of programs out there, you know. I think people kind of forget about the basics, you know, like, so for what's really important, like, so especially for guys coming up now looking to build some muscle, for that kind of, like, you know, beginner to intermediate phase, and if guys have access to a squat rack, a barbell, a few dumbbells and a bench, then they should be growing throughout this situation, you know, like, so there's no reason, you know, they can't grow throughout this whole process, like, so you know, for that type of person, like, so so yeah, definitely, you know, if you have the means and you have the money and the space, then, you know, you can definitely kind of make the most of it, like, so
I mean, I'd be the worst person for home training. I really would. It's like I just can't bring myself to do it. I got some bands. I got like those resistance bands the first lockdown. Did about 6 weeks of training with them. Got like really good. Like, it felt great because, you know, when your body, like, you haven't done anything and then you do anything and it'll just you'll get a pump, you'll get a connection. And then after about 6 weeks of it, I was like, yeah, this ain't gonna be working anymore. I ended up going off and I texted somebody who had a gym. So I got in access behind that. But like for the general population of people who wouldn't be in a position like ourselves working in the industry, I mean, I would tell people, if you want to challenge yourself, all you need to order is just get a regular Olympic lifting bar, get yourself maybe 100 kilos of plates, be it in 20s or 10s, whatever, and you can make a rack. I mean, you can get lumber, you can make a rack. If you want to save some
Of course
money,
you can,
you can DIY it. You can, I mean, even for like, I'm just trying to think, like once you have a rack or some equivalent and you have a bar and you have some plates, you can do your full body. That's all you need. Anyway, to put on, especially at least establishing some density. I mean, like there's nothing that kind of beats. I've always found I would always stick in the finishes after. So I would always start off at like, I would either start off, I'd do the warm ups, and then I'd get my clients or get myself doing, it would usually be as much free weights as I can handle. As you said, like if the joints feel sore and the muscles don't, I just don't do it that week. I'll do something else. But with yourself going from DC training and the White Tree, the Neil Hill stuff, at this point in your career, with your injuries and stuff, like what have you kind of found a middle ground, or have you kind of adapted?
I have, you know, so it really depends on the body part. Some body parts will gain more volume, some body parts less volume, some body parts will train heavier, some will train more moderate, you know, that kind of way, like so. But it's, you know, understanding, you know, and finding the sweet spot where the muscle can still keep growing, you know. You know, so for me, like it's just like, right, I can do this, but I can't do that. But as well, you know, this style of training will, you know, continue, you know, my body parts progressing, you know, that kind of like so in terms of growth and that kind of thing, like so. You know, those days where, you know, I want to deadlift 300 kilos and that kind of stuff, like that's all gone. You know, it's just not going to happen, you know, unless I want to be in a heap for a week.
It's flat bench for me. I mean, I remember that used to be my bread and butter because I learned how to do it from a powerlifter. So for about a year, my bench pressing was on the money, and I remember like I didn't record any of it, so there's no proof of any of this. But I remember it's like I was quite happy. I mean, like I was under, you know, like I'm a short guy, so for me, like I was like, great, I can bench 160 at the time for sets of 8, and I was like, that's a lot. Looking back, I was like, that's actually quite a bit of weight. And then I'm like, if I got under that now, just no, I wouldn't even think about doing that kind of shit. Like, but did you find like I found I injured myself? It wasn't actually from flat bench, but as a side result, I could never go back to doing that kind of the heavy duty flat bench. But what I got forced to do was I kind of found equivalence. I mean, like the weight was going up with flat bench, but it wasn't necessarily bodybuilding. You know, it was good for going in and moving some weight. Did you have certain lifts that you were strong on that didn't necessarily?
Yeah, a lot of my back movements I was very strong on, like so, like deadlifts. Back squats were pretty good. You know, they were up over 200 all the time. You know, barbell rows were always very heavy. I think I was up rowing about 200 kilos at one stage. You know, all those kind of things, like so, very, very good. My pressing movements, I suppose my shoulders were nearly stronger than my chest. For a lot of it as well. Like so, I mean, I was able to, I think 60 kilo dumbbells I was able to do pretty comfortably. And I think I was shoulder pressing on the Smith machine probably 3.5 plates. You know, so things like that, like so that was pretty decent. Like so, you know, my shoulders are still okay. I can still do a lot with shoulders. You know, I just kind of work more on kind of mixing it in a sense where, you know, failure's still the target, but I can maybe work off higher rep ranges as I'm getting older, just because of the wear and tear. I suppose issues that I've really had will be lower back, like L4, L5 disc issues. On top of that, then I've torn my hamstring and calf and my quad at different stages. So they've been pretty nasty injuries. I've ruptured my obliques as well, which is a pretty bad injury. And that took me about 14 weeks to recover.
How'd you rupture an oblique? Like, how does
that deadlifting,
yeah.
Yeah. So I was doing deadlifting last on the program, and as I was pulling off the floor, I got about 3-4 inches up and just felt it. You know, I thought I dislocated a rib initially. So I was like, oh, that feels uncomfortable. So I stood up and I tried to do a few more exercises like chest supported rows and that kind of stuff. I was like, man, this is really uncomfortable. Next day I woke up and I was just like black and blue all down my side. So I was like, went to the osteopath, and he was like, yeah, man, you've ruptured your oblique. You know, it's a pretty odd injury.
Yeah,
you know, so so I've done some, you know, like with my preps, like I remember in 2012 prep, I thought I tore both biceps as well, at about 6 weeks out. So that was a weird one. I ended up like my arms just looked like sausages. Like it was just, you know, it was crazy looking. Like, and then I ended up getting physio on those. I got back training probably about 4 weeks for the competition for upper body, and that was fine. And 2014, I think, was my only year injury free. 2016 was my L4, L5. That was a nightmare. 2018, I tore my quad 6 weeks out. So it was like, you know, these type of things. Then 2019, I ended up rupturing my oblique. I ended up tearing my hamstring, tearing my calf. So I had a bit of a nightmare of a year. I think I fucking damaged my TFL as well at one stage.
Yeah.
So you know, so I'm kind of just like trying to listen to my body a little bit more now, and not murder myself.
Yeah, I mean, I found like most of the injuries I've had, like I did, it was probably post show. I don't think it was during prep. It's during prep, I'd always like kind of, I trained the same way during my off season, so I never really changed too much. Like I'd switch out some exercises at the end just because I couldn't do them. But the post show rebound fucked me up with injuries. I think it was like just gaining all that kind of, you feel like you can lift all that weight, but you can't. So like you'll have a laugh at this. I remember I went to the PCA finals last year, and I remember the day after the show, we went to a gym called Flex and Tone, where Jordan Peters used to train in Manchester. And I remember the way they had the dumbbells, it was done in the plates, but it was done in pounds, but none of the labels were on them. So I remember we were working up the main sets, and I think I thought it was a 55 kilo main set. Turned out to be a 62.5 flat press on the chest press. And I was like, if this was off season, it'd be fine. But it was the day after a show, and I just gained 10 kilos of food weight, you know, and I was still dry from the diabetic. And I remember just dropping the weight, and I looked at my friend, and I was just like, if I had done anything wrong with that movement, I could have torn both pecs. Like it just felt, it was the most, I tell my clients this anyway, I tell anyone this, like the most sensitive you're going to be at is after the show. Like you have to be careful. Like, I mean, that's what fucked my pec up. It was the Smith machine. It was flat bench, but it was an angled Smith machine. So obviously all the pressure was on that small little area just over. So it was like that.
Yeah.
And then it
more pec minor,
yeah, then it went. So it's just like, you know, no more of certain movements. Yeah. But like, did you find like you've never been injured after the show or anything like that? You've kind of held yourself together, like with the food and stuff.
No, like usually I take it easy. You know, after shows, like after shows, like I won't train too hard and that kind of stuff. I'll give myself a week or two of nothing to failure and nothing heavy. You know, so I'm kind of just building back up the food slowly. You know, and just taking plenty of water in as well, like hydration, making sure that's all on point. Like so for that, like it's post show, like it's never really been a problem for me. Like so, I've always done what I was told, as such, you know. But no, it's always kind of come to that point where, you know, for me, you start to rev the intensity, always coming into preps or during preps where, you got to up your game to get the most from what you're doing, like an so. And sometimes, you just take it too far, so, or you just get unlucky. And that's just the way it goes. Like sometimes my injuries have always been a case of like, just maybe a small lapse in concentration or, maybe just trying to get a little bit too much out of what I'm doing,
I mean, I found like with myself.
So yeah.
No, I agree with you 100%. Like I mean, I've done my lower back a couple of times. I've done my, every injury I've had has either been from warm-ups or it's been from like not necessarily warm-ups, like it's still heavy weight, but it's a warm-up. Like it would be maybe the one before the main sets, that kind of thing. Or it would be outside of the gym. It's like usually stupid things outside of the gym, like just slipping and falling, or stupid little things like that. And that's been most of the injuries. It's never been anything major like that. Like I've never torn a hamstring or a quad, or I've never I've never gone black and blue. Like that's the one thing. I've never gotten bruising like to that kind of extent. Like I think the most horrific thing I saw was Brian in person. I remember the week after he tore his pec. I remember seeing that, and I was just like, no, that's like I just never want to be like that. But like with yourself going forward, like obviously you're training away, you have your shows. Are you gonna do the muscle contest, or are you gonna do just the spring shows? Like, what do you have in mind?
Yeah, no, I'll do the muscle contest if it's on, definitely, yeah. So anything around that time, I'll definitely throw my hat at it, like, so. See how things go, like, so. But no, yeah, looking forward to it, like, so. Hopefully we will be able to get things going and get back up on stage sometime soon, like, so. Looking forward to it, like, so. I'm excited about it.
For sure, man. Like I probably won't be doing spring now. Like I was never going to. I was kind of aiming for October, but like I'm coaching myself. I've always kind of like, it's quite funny. It's like I've either worked with Christian. Let me just see you there. It's working.
You're frozen up there, mate.
Yeah, no worries. I can hear you. Well, look, I suppose on that note, Paul, if you can hear me, pretty much done over an hour and a half. We've got there we go. Perfect.
You there?
Yeah. We're good. So, what I was gonna say, Paul, was like I'm probably gonna do October. I was gonna do October because I've kind of coached myself. I've always said my one thing I want to do. Like, have you found this with your clients? They won't take the time. Like a lot. Like, I mean, I've no rush. I'm kind of like, once I get to where I want to be in the off season, then I'll diet down. Like if I can get up to a certain level of strength and size, then I'll down. So I said if I can get up where I want, by July, I'll just do a crash diet and just diet really hard. Just see how that works. I don't really function too well on the 17-week diets. It kind of, I'd rather have like 12 just suffering as opposed to 17. Because I've done that before. When I was working with Christian, it was great, but the off season went really well. And then I think come to prep, it was like 20 weeks of prep, and I was like, I wasn't in state. Like, don't get me wrong, I wasn't peeled by any means at the end of the world, at the end of the day. But I think on my end, I think it was just personal stuff, and then on his end, I think it was just I said to him after, next time we diet down, let's just do like 12 weeks, just so I don't have any spare days. It's just like, I mean, with your clients and with yourself, I mean, have you found you work well with like a longer diet, or would you rather do a shorter?
It just depends. It really just depends on where their body's at. So for the start position in relation to when the show is on, like, so. So some clients can be 12 weeks, some can be 16 weeks. Generally, I mean, like 16 is loads. And if I'm doing 16-week diet, generally it's just tidying a few things up for the first few weeks, and then pushing hard into that, like, so, you know, and getting the most from that situation, like, so. But yeah, I mean, just it changes from person to person, you know, that kind of way. So, and as well, like, you know, I've seen, like you said, I've seen some people work better on, you know, shorter diets rather than longer diets, you know, so it just really depends on the person. You know, I think some people mentally, I think just, you know, the whole 16-week thing just doesn't work for them. You know, where if they know a show is really close and it's only, you know, 12 weeks or 8 weeks, they can drop the hammer, you know, so, and really get into shape, like, so, you know.
I suppose it depends on how,
that's it.
It really just depends on how messy you get into the off season. I mean, some people wouldn't really change their composition too much. I mean, then some people obviously would be a lot more sensitive. So, you know, varies from person to person. But I found as well, like, I mean, every prep has been different too. I mean, like, there was, I think when I was a junior, it was so much easier to diet down. Like, I think, like, I don't know what it was, but I remember looking at pictures back when I was competing against Mark Hodson and Giovanni, and I was like, I wasn't off, but what it took me to get to that kind of condition was a lot less than it took me the next few times around. I think it was just a lot less. I wouldn't say effort, but it came easy to me. It was like, I think it was like dieting on tuna and sweet corn and light mayo. Like, so it's like just little cheap things like that. Like, it was literally just basic stuff like that. But like, if I was to do something like that now, I don't know how that would come about. I don't know if it would work or not, but it's like it's a weird one. I mean, like, obviously you're a bigger guy than me, you're a taller guy. So I mean, like, the overall calorie consumption, you know.
Yeah, it can be different. You know, like I said, like, I mean, you know, it can be a case of like dieting. Sometimes you diet on more calories, sometimes you diet on less calories. And it really depends on that stage. Like, it can depend on how busy you are in your daily output in terms of, like, are you on your feet a lot during the day, or, you know, are you more sedentary? You know, the kind of way, so I'm sitting down a lot more during the day, and that can make a massive difference as well. Like, so, I think in 2018, I didn't really do any cardio because I was working so much, you know, in terms of PT and that kind of stuff. Like, and, you know, I was on my feet so much during the day. That was pretty much like doing cardio anyway. You know, the kind of, like, so always busy, always working, you know, kind of, so, and that has such an effect on calorie output that, you know, you don't need to be doing, you know, 60, 90 minutes cardio on a daily basis. Like, so, you know, well, it didn't for me at the time, like, so, but, you know, this is it, you know, and there's always going to be different factors, different variables, and it's how you want to manage your variables in terms of, like, using it like a toolbox, you know, like an ISO, and how to, you know, use each tool at a specific time, like, so, and that will make a massive difference also, you know.
That's it. Well, Paul, look, thanks for coming on. And I suppose before we go on, finish up, where can people find you for coaching and, like?
Oh yeah, if you just check out my page, so Paul Morgan 007 on Instagram, you can DM me there, or I have my email address as well, which is on the bio, which is paulmorgan@gmail.com. So if anyone's looking or inquiring, by all means, drop me a message and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Like, so.
Well, look, thanks for coming on. And
All right, buddy, appreciate it.